When Jack Yoakum lived in Chicago, he set off an argument that split the congregation of a Methodist church. The pastor and his family have come to visit, and we've asked them to remember that time, a time when Jack needed permission to go into the Methodist ministry.
The upshot of the thing was that in our United Methodist Church, you must have a majority of 2/3 of all the ballots cast at a charge conference in order to approve a request for the ministry. He had more than 50% of the vote, but you have to have 67%. You see, you have to have 2/3, and he fell just 11 votes short of 2/3.
About half the congregation was Spanish-speaking, and nearly all of them opposed Jack Yoakum. In an emotional battle, he nearly won.
At first, we didn't know that Jack was gay, you know?
Yeah.
And we accepted him like a normal person, no problem. He went on campouts with us, and we had a real good time, and we learned that he was a pretty cool guy, and he really knew what was happening, and he knew how to handle situations, and he was one of the older people that were for the younger kids. So, you know, he got... Yeah, very definitely. And we got to know him, and he was our Sunday school teacher, and he was pretty cool, so we found out he was gay, and no problem, and he wanted to be a minister, and no problem there either, because there's no reason why a person who has this much ability should not be able to be a minister. That's how we felt anyway. So we got everybody, every single kid that was a member of the church in the front row. We dragged them in, every single one. I remember there was, I always remember there was one Sushmati couldn't go, her mother didn't want her to vote, and she's crying, and she claims she's going to run away from home because her mother wouldn't let her come and vote, and all this.
Okay, I think you know how much those kids really felt towards you and for you and positively about this point. They weren't at all afraid of you at all.
No, I didn't think so.
Were you, Karen or Judy?
I don't know. I can remember
I may have been afraid of them at one time.
I can remember after the vote, you know, all the girls were out in front of the church crying. You know, I remember Jack saying, "I appreciate your tears," and stuff like that. We felt very strongly about it, all of us.
People say, it all makes sense, but how can two men or two women really love each other? It's just people don't understand it. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, except that they do.
Our wedding picture.
What Jack and Jim and Cindy and Karen are saying, what the gay liberation movement is saying is, let us come out of hiding. Don't take away our freedom just because you don't like who we sleep with. Repeal the laws which govern what we do in private. Hire us or fire us for the job we do. Let us go into your bars. Let us put away the lies and come out into public. We've put up with the discrimination and ridicule long enough.
In this particular culture, where we have a big hang-up about sexuality anyway, to begin with, which is a vast, large, repressed area of most people's lives, happiness is found in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different places, both within the gay subculture and with straight society too, and that no one prescription is right, no one prescription is going to make a person feel free and fulfilled as a person.
Northwestern Bell Telephone Company admitted this summer that it will not employ known homosexuals, a position that may be challenged in court. Since the phone company is being honest about it, we thought, what about other companies? Our question brought on an epidemic of corporate buck-passing. Nobody, it seemed, wanted to take responsibility. The companies we called are the biggest employers in town, and most of them finally decided that, yes, they'd hire an admitted homosexual. We took their word for it, of course. If they lied to us, they got away with it. A couple of years ago, Honeywell admitted it would not hire a homosexual, but this time when we called, they said yes, and so they're on the yes list. Only 2 employers said no, in fact, Northwestern Bell and the United States Selective Service. Another long list of employers admitted homosexuality would be one factor in hiring, or else their answers were so fuzzy we couldn't tell for sure if they meant yes or no. We put them all in a middle category. 4 out of the list of 13, you'll notice, are government agencies.
It is my conviction that what a person does in bed has nothing to do with his or her employability. As an employer over the last 30 years, I've concerned myself with a potential employee's ability to do a job and their integrity. I'm no more concerned about their sexual orientation or activity than I am about his or her food likes and dislikes. In fact, if every person who currently engages in same-sex behavior were dismissed from his or her job today, our whole economy would be crippled. Our businesses, our professions, our public schools, our universities, yes, and our religious institutions. But the real issue here is not gay liberation, but all sexual liberation. An enormous number of straight or heterosexual people in our society also live in the closet. As with their gay counterpart, they pretend to a sexual life that is a lie. So if we could get honest about sexual practices, then we could get honest about same-sex behavior. Just as fair employment laws make it now illegal to discriminate against employees on the basis of race, religion, or sex, so it then should be illegal to discriminate on the basis of one's sexual orientation or activity.
We asked Northwestern Bell to explain its position, but the people in charge told us they hope if they don't say anything, the problem will quiet down and go away. 2 men who say they were denied employment by Northwestern Bell have other ideas, though. They may file suit. Good evening. Tonight on More on Sunday, a report on the fastest growing family pastime, divorce. We'll also go Dixielanding with the Upper Mississippi Jazz Band in a live recording session. And we'll see how some state representatives have formed a pretty good traveling act of their own. First, a sampling of the praise and the outrage that poured out of our mailbox after last week's program on gay people. We received over 200 phone calls running 10 to 1 against us for doing the program, and half those calls came in before the program was even on the air. Of the 57 letters we received, 31 said they were sickened, shocked, disgusted, depressed, repulsed, or all of the above. Douglas Pitts, a church rector in St. Paul, called our program a dangerous and degrading temptation for young people. He wrote, "Would you like to have on your conscience that through you one young girl or boy has gone that route?" But a woman from Plato, who also hated the program, soothed our conscience somewhat on that score. Our 11-year-old boy remarked, "That makes me sick. I'm not going to be a homosexual." But we apparently added to the problems of a Fridley woman who said, "I was so repelled, I wished my husband would die or I would, as it spoiled me for sex with him or anyone." Mrs. Muriel Haig displayed an incredible perceptiveness when she wrote, "It didn't take much discernment to realize from their expressions that those men are sick." And an anonymous writer offered this brilliant solution. "As far as I'm concerned, these characters, weirdos and stoops, should be caught and sterilized." 23 letter writers saw things differently, such as Davis Scott. "As a medical student, I find it encouraging that WCCO has the insight to see that what is most difficult to talk about is what needs most to be discussed." A St. Paul woman said, "I am a happily married heterosexual who thinks it's about time we begin thinking that being different is not necessarily bad." And John Peterson from Minneapolis makes this point, "Homosexuals are the only minority discriminated against for loving." We reported in last week's program that Northwestern Bell Telephone Company refuses to hire known homosexuals. We reported at that time that 2 men the company didn't hire were planning to sue for jobs and back pay. This week they did. We'll be back with a look at divorce in a moment.
You may notice that Dave Moore consistently spoke about so-called homosexuals. Homosexual is an obsolete term that was once widely used to describe us. We resent this term and its implications. The word homosexual implies sexual practices and preferences, and we do not appreciate such a limited view of ourselves. Just like straight people, we are lawyers or librarians, friends and roommates, not just sexual beings. Like any other group of people, from feminists to Swedes to Native Americans, we insist upon choosing the words which will describe us. We are proud to call ourselves gays. But when Moore and other reporters refer to us as homosexuals, we wince. It's just not fair. Incidentally, many gay women prefer the term lesbian. The so-called sexual orientation of gays dominated the thinking of the guest commentator and others. Our sexuality is not the problem. When people understand that gayness is the way we feel, then we will finally be on the road to fair treatment. This is why any discussion of how one gets to be a quote-unquote homosexual is nonsense. How does anyone get to feel love for another human being? There is no simple biological explanation for emotions, and it's ridiculous to try to pin one on us. Remember, everybody has some gayness. That's just caring for men or women of the same gender. That old idea of a continuum that Moore mentioned is outmoded. Gayness is like beauty. We all have some of it, only we gays have more of it. You just watch the reactions of viewers who wrote in to comment. Now ask yourself, just who needs that psychiatrist? Me as a gay person, or those people who would jail, censor, or mutilate another human being just because that person is in love?